Good afternoon. My name's Sue Lucy. I am the President and CEO of Mass Insight Education and Research, and I am so happy that all of you are able to join us. At Mass Insight, we partner with schools, districts, and education agencies to promote equity of academic opportunity and success by providing strategies, tools, approaches, and thought partnership with the goal of dramatically improving education systems and student academic success. In Massachusetts, we partner with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education on the state's Advanced Placement STEM and English program. Our program is in its 13th year, and we serve 80+ high schools and approximately 10,000 students and 600 teachers each year. The goals of the program are to have more students of color and students from low-income backgrounds in advanced placement courses, and to provide them and their teachers with the additional supports they need to achieve success on the AP exam in order to facilitate pathways to college. Today, our program focuses on building advanced academic pathways post-COVID-19 and beyond, and we are privileged to hear from 3 powerful speakers on this topic. We will first hear from Trevor Packer, Senior Vice President of AP and Instruction at the College Board, who has led the AP program since 2003. You received Trevor's bio prior to the program, so I will not review it here. I will say, though, that Trevor and everyone at College Board are respected and valued partners in our work at Mass Insight, and I am very grateful to have him with us. Trevor, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lucy. And I would just sort of pause before going into my remarks to express the esteem I have for Mass Insight. If every state had a Mass Insight, the diversity of college-going students in our nation would be entirely different. The work that Mass Insight does to serve so many different students in different schools is remarkable and should be emulated everywhere. So Dr. Lucy, it's a privilege to be here. One of the things I think we've all sort of learned more about this year when we've spent inordinate amounts of time in video conferences like this is each other's pets. I've seen so many of my colleagues' pets. It's reminded me of the pets that I had growing up. I was the oldest of 9 children. And my parents were forever buying new pets for us in a sort of abortive attempt to teach us responsibility. It never seemed to work. They went through dogs and cats to rabbits to fish to birds. Eventually, the pet du jour was something called a Persian tumbler pigeon. And I don't know if you know what these animals are, but they're strange. They fly not in any sort of linear pattern, but they fly elliptically. So they will fly up into the air, and then they'll tumble backwards, and then they'll fly a few more feet and up in the air and tumble backwards, and so on. So I mean, my brothers and I did not know what to do with these birds. The only use I can remember us putting to them was that it was sort of a I guess in Utah at the time, the way you would ask a young woman out to prom or to homecoming dance or something would be to do something creative, a promposal. So we would take the pigeons over to her house and leave them on her doorstep and put a note on it saying, if you want to go with me to prom, say yes. If no, say no. And she would then put the note in the little metal case on the pigeon's foot and let the pigeons free, and they would fly back a few miles. And many hours later, given the very slow tumbling elliptical flight pattern they would employ, back to my home, where I would be anxiously awaiting the yes or no from the person I had asked. So these tumbler pigeons feel to me like the animal most similar to my feelings about educational progress this year. For every sort of hopeful step or advance forward, I have seen educators or students or organizations like the AP program tumble backwards in despair and then fly a few more feet forward, make some degree of ascent, and then tumble backwards. It's been deeply frustrating, and it has really convinced my colleagues and myself within the AP program that flexibility needs to be the hallmark for AP testing this year. So I want to give a very brief overview of the announcement we made earlier today. This is on our website. We've emailed all AP teachers worldwide. So I don't want to spend too much time on this since the information is out there and available. But I do want to provide a brief overview of the decisions we were able to reach after lots of feedback and dialogue with educators such as yourselves. So what we have decided is that we must be absolutely flexible in terms of where the AP exams are administered this year. So AP exams will be administered on paper in schools at any school that is open and able to do so. But AP exams can also be assigned to students to take at home digitally, or can be taken in schools digitally if students are unable to test in a paper testing environment. So schools can use those options as they see fit. They can have some of their students come in and test on paper, whereas other students that may not be comfortable coming to a school can be assigned to test online at their homes. So that's the first hallmark of this spring's AP testing. There will be flexibility in where the students test. The second type of flexibility that we're able to provide is that in a typical AP year, there's just one AP testing window followed by makeup testing dates. And this year we felt a strong need for flexibility for for the amount of instructional time that schools have had and how widely varying that is. So this year, for the first time, there will be 3 AP testing windows and then makeup dates thereafter that. There will be an early May testing window, a late May testing window, and an early June testing window, and then makeup dates in later June and July. And schools can use those windows in a mix and match way. You don't need to assign all your students to window 1 or window 2. You can assign some students to each window to space them out. You can choose which windows are best for each subject. If there are teachers that are especially worried about getting through the material, you can assign them the latest window that works for your school, and so on. Each of the windows will have different versions of the exam, of course, so that answers to the questions can't be shared between those testing windows. The third principle, though, that we're following is one of fairness, which prevents us from providing a third type of flexibility that many would value. To be fair to students, we cannot place them into a college course where they will struggle. Now, last year, colleges were in the same situation as many high schools. Colleges were caught off guard by the pandemic and were disrupted and had to end their semesters early. Most of them were unable to complete their courses virtually. They just weren't set up for virtual learning. And many high schools were in the same situation. Accordingly, last spring, we had permission from colleges to reduce the scope of the AP exam to 45 minutes and to not cover the final 8 weeks of an AP class. This year, we have no such flexibility. Colleges, by and large, over the summer, geared up and put in place processes for their instructors to deliver the full scope of a college class virtually this year. So at the selective colleges, now I understand that there are community colleges who are finding ways to just not cover a typical college course this year. But MIT, for example, simply will not award college credit for calculus unless a student has learned polar areas and Riemann sums. These are topics that are at the very end of the AP calculus course. So to be fair to students, we cannot provide flexibility about what will appear on the AP exam. Whether a student tests at home or in school, they will take a full-length AP exam that covers the full scope of the college course so that their score can be accurately used by colleges to place them into the course where they will succeed once they arrive on campus. Now, to be clear, while we can provide those flexibilities that I've described, in no way do I think this means that there's a perfect solution in place. We want no student to feel any pressure to take an AP exam if that is not in their best interest this year. If that would cause undue stress or strain for some reason, we've waived all cancellation fees so that any student who wants to opt out of an AP exam can do so without any penalties or consequences of any sort. So I'm happy to respond to questions about that as Sue and I talk in a few minutes, but wanted you to be aware of those overarching themes about how AP testing will work during this pandemic year. But mostly, I have hope for the future as we move beyond this year. It is clear, given the sort of ways the pandemic is disproportionately disrupting students of color and low-income students, that we need to find ways to make AP a program that better serves such populations. So there are two work streams in process that I want to preview with you. That sort of point the way towards an AP program that I believe will be better configured to help students. The first of these is that we are in the process of analyzing where the biggest gaps in student performance are between white students and Black students, between white students and Asian and Latinx students. Because it might not, it may surprise you where those gaps are and are not. Many people have hypothesized that the gaps would be largest on exams that require a lot of writing. But that's not what the analysis is showing so far. In fact, the gaps between Black and Latinx and white students are smallest on the AP seminar and the AP research exams, the two AP exams that are the most writing intensive. You might be surprised by where the biggest gap is. The biggest gap for AP or for Black students on any AP exam in terms of their performance is AP Environmental Science. And the biggest gap for Latinx students is AP Economics, followed by AP Environmental Science. So we are analyzing the specific questions that create those differences, and they seem to relate to a very finite number of quantitative skills. And what is nice about that finding is that it means that if there are issues that are preventing strong performance on AP exam for certain groups of students, and if there are just a few of those, we can focus on those much more intensively in the resources we provide than if the problem were across every single type of question. So far, the analysis is not complete, but it appears that we will be able to produce some short digital boot camps. Now, of course, that probably is not the right term for these, but short digital boot camps that can be provided free of charge to AP teachers that are focused just on those areas where the gaps are exacerbating, or where student performance is exacerbating the gaps between Black students and white students, or between Hispanic students and white students. So more to come on that, but we're excited about the sort of ways we're increasingly able to pinpoint what is preventing the types of scores that we all want students of color to achieve as they prepare for college credit and placement. The second piece of exciting news is that about 5 years ago, I got a call from the George Lucas Education Foundation. And now if I'm like you, or if you're like me, George Lucas might not be the first name you think of when you think of education. But he was really interested in something in particular when his organization contacted us. He believed that having students spend more time within their coursework doing projects rather than listening to explanations from their teachers or lectures from their teachers could boost their performance. And he felt like if he could prove that that happened on an AP exam, he could get people to pay attention. Because too often he was finding that people would say, oh, well, sure, project-based learning's fine. But really, if students want to learn a lot of material and they need to learn it well, you can't spend time on projects. Projects just take too much time. So his organization has spent millions of dollars creating a random control trial that they have conducted for the past multiple years to evaluate what happens when you place urban students or students of color into an AP classroom that upends the AP curriculum entirely and reorganizes the curriculum into 5 long projects that allow the students to learn everything that could show up on the AP exam, not through covering the material through lectures or explanations, but through these 5 big projects. They'll be releasing their findings to the public later this month on February 22nd. I'm not allowed to share those in advance, but I can tell you they are the most powerful. It's the single most powerful research I've ever seen about the AP program, and the only research I've ever seen that shows a way to change the scores of low performing students dramatically and quickly. In 1 year's time of using the curriculum that they funded, this project-based learning curriculum, the scores changed dramatically. So let me pause on that note and hand this conversation back to Sue. But I want to thank you for the patience you've demonstrated this year as you grapple with this sort of unimaginable scale of school disruption, larger than we've ever seen in the history of American public education. So thanks for your leadership, Mass Insight, and thank you to all of you as educators for what you're doing for your students.
Trevor, I want to start by thanking you so much for those really informative and thoughtful remarks. And I think, speaking personally, I'm fascinated by the 2 work streams you described, and really look forward to learning more going forward. Right now, I'd like to delve a little more deeply into our current context, bearing in mind that many people in our audience are individuals who are either working with students every day in classrooms and or leading schools and systems that are serving students. And so I guess my first question is, how prepared do you think students will be for the 2021 exams, given that COVID-19 has both highlighted and exacerbated inequities both in our society writ large and in our education systems? And how, if you just amplify, you gave us the frame for decisions you've made about the exams this year, but just maybe amplifying a bit how you've thought about these equity issues in that discussion.
Yeah. So it's been important to us to understand, first of all, do students have device access that enables them to learn online? And we're seeing we're not seeing issues that way that are at scale. I mean, there's historically been a digital divide, of course, but by and large, society has rallied and we're seeing powerful solutions for both device access and connectivity. That said, no amount of device access and connectivity makes this learning beautiful or effective. And so I worry greatly that the real issue is, while that is an immediate barrier that needed to be overcome and that has been to some extent overcome for many students, that doesn't make the learning good. And so on our side, we've tried to produce free videos taught by some of the best AP teachers in the country that anyone can access at any time. But just more stuff also doesn't help. That's not, all of us, I think, are struggling together to figure out how do you actively engage students in their own learning? How do you help them be agents of change for themselves? And the real struggle that many teachers had found ways to do that in the classroom and are feeling that I've heard so many teachers say this year, I feel like I'm a first year teacher. Everything I've known about how to teach, I've had to throw out the window this year, and that is painful. So I don't know how the AP exam will be equated to the 2019 exams in difficulty level. So it will detect and tell us very clearly as a society what has happened to student learning for advanced high school students, or for the 40% of high school students that take AP. We'll have a good snapshot there. I am very curious to see. I don't know whether it's better for teachers to try to cover all the material before test day, or whether it's better to slow down and do fewer topics very well. My bias is the latter. I'm a person that tends to believe that learning fewer things well will help a student do better in their attempt to earn college credit than rapid coverage of everything. But I can't say that scientifically. I'm in learning mode like all of you, and I just don't know. We have surveyed AP teachers and AP students to ask them the question you asked me, and about 2/3 of them do say we are afraid that our students will do worse than similar students did in prior years. And 1/3 of them, bizarrely in my mind, say, we actually think our kids are going to do better than similar kids would have done in prior years. I've said, we need to follow up with those teachers and figure out what on earth makes them think that.
Right.
Because have they cracked the code? I know.
Right.
But I don't have anything productive to share there yet.
Yeah. So I heard you loud and clear in your remarks about the issue of fairness with regard to making sure the AP exams really reflected what colleges are expecting with regard to college level work. At the same time, and I also heard you loud and clear when you said something to the effect of students may, you don't want any student to feel forced to take the exam, and students may choose not to take it. So what advice, though, would you have for teachers, maybe school counselors, to whom these students may come and say, okay, what is your advice to me as an individual student thinking about whether or not to take the AP exam, given all of the conditions that have been present this year?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you for the chance to air this. Here's what I would say. Number one, I would say, if you're concerned about college admissions and you're feeling pressure to take the AP exam for college admissions, take that, you can disregard that concern immediately. There is not a college admissions officer in this country that will say, we're going to look less favorably on a student who took the course but didn't take the exam this year. We have heard consistently from admissions officers, they don't get the scores anyway. The scores go to the registrar's office. I mean, a lot of students think, oh, this score is going to affect admissions. AP scores are not explicitly used for admissions. AP course taking is considered often, but they're in the course right now. So if their concern is admissions, which is many students' concern, that should not be driving an exam taking decision this year.
Okay.
So what should it affect an exam taking decision? That is, does the student want the opportunity to place out of that course in college? And many students may feel less concerned about this. They may feel like, I've had such a shaky year, I want to take calculus again in college, or I want to take art history again in college, or I don't want to skip freshman English or first year English in college. So that can calm students as well. Like, hey, but if you do want to skip the course, you do need to cover the material that the colleges are generally covering so that you'll be successful when you place into a sophomore course. So as much as you can make it all about that individual credit decision, two other data points that might be helpful to students in this situation is what is typical this year. The majority of AP students this year are taking a single AP exam this year, just one. So that can be an effective strategy for the students to say, I might be in 3 AP courses, but I'm going to focus my exam taking on just one, because I just don't, this is just, there's just too much going on in my life and too many distractions at home, and I don't feel like I'm learning the way I would normally learn. So if that can normalize something for them to get them out of this arms race state of mind that I've got to take a bunch of these. Secondarily, if it's helpful to any of you, our own research that the College Board has conducted and that we circulate whenever we hear this concern shows that a student maximizes their college readiness, the sort of college success that they can get out of their AP experience by taking no more than 1 or 2 AP exams a year. If you take more than that, it might help you skip a semester of college if that's what you're going for, but you don't need to feel like you need to take more than 1 or 2 APs a year if what you're simply trying to do is prepare yourself for the most seamless transition into the rigor of college.
That's great. Thank you for the great advice. That was a really powerful framing.
You can, if your students are struggling, reach out to the college admissions officers will back me on this. I'm confident. If it helps you to get a quote from any of the colleges in your community, that would just be, they will say, I think what I'm sure they'll say to you what they've said to me, which is like, hey, you know, we're seeing that students are in the AP courses. It's important they're challenging themselves, but we're not going to think any less of a student who opts out of an exam during these types of conditions.
Okay, that's great. So Trevor, I wish we had about an hour more to talk, but I'm going to ask you one other question because I also want to hear from our fabulous other speakers.
Of course.
So thinking forward to students who are potentially entering AP next year or potentially even in years after that. There's been a lot of attention, as you know, focused on learning loss and what it's going to take to overcome that, as well as the disparate impact of learning loss on students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, etc. And this will probably mean that it's more challenging than ever to ensure that students are really prepared to enter AP. So how do you, given that we, the educators in the audience, Mass Insight, the College Board, are committed to continuing the work of diversifying AP and increasing access and success, what's your advice to all of us?
So it's harder for me to give advice to you because I worry that I'm not qualified to do that. You know better than me that how to address this on the student side and the teacher side. What I can say is what we've been thinking about on the AP program side, because we feel a responsibility to address this on the program design and program implementation side. So part of this is the two areas I've already shared. When the Lucas Foundation releases their research, it will show that there's a much more rapid way to change learning gaps than I've ever seen in an advanced course before. So we feel a responsibility to sort of rapidly adapt to, and as a result, they previewed this research with us a year ago so that we will be ready this summer to begin offering professional learning series in lieu of a standard AP Summer Institute for 2 AP subjects, AP Environmental Science and AP US Government Politics, so that beginning this fall, schools can adopt wholesale, free of charge, all of those materials for the project-based learning AP course are free.
Wow,
So
great.
that can happen this fall for those 2 subject areas. Now I recognize that's just 2, but it is a starting point for schools that are very concerned about learning loss and a way to fairly dramatically and quickly help students who have typically performed at lower levels in AP boost their scores dramatically. And I mentioned the other area as well. We need to, on our side, we need to be thinking about ways to design interventions and resources that are targeted specifically on these gaps that are identified. So we're going to be looking very carefully at this year's AP results, as well as at PSAT score pattern changes, which PSAT is such a good predictor of AP success. We'll be able to see on that instrument whether there are specific skills that have decreased this year due to learning loss, and that would thereby indicate that students are going to struggle in particular types of AP courses, and we'll hope to design interventions around those.
Wonderful. Trevor, I want to thank you very much for joining us. You are, of course, welcome to stay on and continue listening, but I am going to now turn to our next set of panelists. So
well,
thank
you,
you
Dr.
so
Lucy,
much.
and I will mute myself,
And
but I'm
please
eager to
call
hear
me
the panelists.
Sue. Okay,
Sue,
good.
I'll do that.
That's great.
I'll mute and I'll turn off my camera, but I'm eager for their
Great.
expertise, so I'll turn this
And
off.
we look forward to learning more about all the great work you've described today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Take care. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Tanya Freeman-Wisdom, head of school at the Dr. John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science in Boston Public Schools, and Carmen Melendez, Director of English Learner Programs at Worcester Public Schools. You again received the bios of both Tanya and Carmen prior to the event, but I do just want to say Dr. Freeman-Wisdom is an experienced and respected school leader who's done amazing work in expanding access to advanced academic opportunities. And Ms. Melendez is known for dramatically expanding recruitment and opportunities, particularly for English language learners and Latinx students and families. So I welcome you both. Carmen, I think your camera got shut off. There you are. Great. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. I want to start by asking each of you to briefly share what you're seeing in your school and/or district with respect to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and how you're working to support students and their teachers at this time.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And I just do want to say that thank you for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I think it goes without saying that many of the disparities that exist among our students became evident when the pandemic hit us all. Here at the O'Brien, one of the ways that we move forward with supporting our students was we developed a check-in system. And that check-in system required our educators to reach out to students every 3 days. And we wanted to make sure that we accounted for every single one of our students. We did it to the point where we were missing one, and one of our administrators went and did a home visit, and we were able to account for all, like I think at that time, 1,580 students. But the check-in system, we were checking for food, shelter, technology, internet access, and social emotional support. And so with that, we learned that many of our students had become in-home educators to their younger siblings. They had to take care of their siblings also in terms of parenting. and they didn't have adequate space within their homes to do their coursework. Many of our students' parents were essential workers, so some of our students were exposed to COVID, and some of them had to work during the day. And so some of the ways that we tried to support that was by flipping classrooms and having our teachers to record lessons so that those students could come back to them later and make sure that they didn't fall too far behind in their coursework. Closing schools took away our students' normalcy. And so we were trying to do as much as we could to replicate what would happen in brick and mortar. In terms of just providing additional support, we promoted the online tools that were offered by the College Board. We built it into, many of our teachers built it into their coursework, and also require students to learn how to use the tools independently, because they had to make up for the time that we lost. We started school something like September 18th, 19th, something like that. And so we also, as we continue to move forward, we're trying to build in more time for our teachers to collaborate. And we're going to be having some upcoming AP bridges so that our teachers can go deeper with some of the skills and the content that the students are going to need in order to be successful on the AP exams that are coming up.
Great. Thank you so much. Carmen, tell us about what you're seeing and doing in Worcester.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we, as all of you, encounter a lot of disparity as far as access to technology. Initially, it took everyone by surprise, but we started strong this year, ensuring that all of our students had a device at home and had access to Wi-Fi through hotspots for those families that didn't have internet access or cable service. So one of the things that we also wanted to do, ensure, seeing that we are a high incidence district for English learners, we knew that it was important that we put our English learners and their families as one of our top priorities in anything we did around remote teaching and learning. So from week 1 back in March, we called every single L family in their home language using an interpreter when necessary, to ensure they knew what was going on, to ensure they knew how to access resources, how to navigate our websites, and to hear from them what were some of their needs that they were encountering, and making connections with community organizations on their behalf. We continue providing that services, translating in our top 7 languages, both written communication and oral communication. And we devised a plan with schools to ensure that each school, each principal, each teacher had access to interpreters to communicate with families on a regular basis. So that was a big priority for us. Also, as a district, we had a team that devised a Caregivers Academy, which the intention of that academy is to really provide the technology support, whether you're English learner or not. We all need help with technology. So we wanted to make sure we had a safe platform that our families could have access to. We had pre-recorded videos in multiple language. We also have live sessions in multiple language. We have resources for self-paced exploration, and that's an ongoing. We actually right now are expanding. We have done our top 7 language, but we just recently have been granted a grant that we've been able to expand to many other languages that we have in our district. Like I said, we are a high incidence district, and we have more than 90 different languages besides English spoken in our district. So one of the things that we also felt it was necessary, because families play an important role pre-COVID and during COVID even more, I think, because families are taking the role of teachers for their children. And for families that don't speak the language, we felt that we needed to provide additional support for them. And we felt one ally in that support was our community partners. Worcester is a rich community of community organizations that represent various ethnic groups. And we reached out to them, and we established a monthly meeting since April where we met together, and we informed those community organizations of all the updates, of the changes that are happening, so they can in turn work with their families, the different ethnic groups that they have relationships with, and help those families and inform those families. So we've been doing that on a monthly basis since um, and we've also have done a few, the superintendent has been doing various family forums to inform all of our families of what's going on and the changes in the district. And we have made a point of doing a couple of those in Spanish, which is our largest language group. So that's a few of the things we've been doing. Of course, with the teachers, we felt we also needed to make sure our teachers were prepared. Like I said, when the pandemic hit us back in March, it caught everyone by surprise. We had various levels of technology literacy among our educators. So when we started this academic year, we started with 12 days of professional development. It included, of course, technology modules that gave teachers tons of tools and resources and best practices around technology and remote teaching, but we also did a focus on social emotional learning and instructional practices. And in those 12 days, our department, the L department, had an opportunity to work with teachers, educators, really the entire district around, we actually use a book as our frame of our conversation called Breaking Down the Walls, created for English learners to really establish conversations around removing barriers and making sure there was equity among our multilingual learners. Throughout the year, we've been adding additional supports as we see fit for our English learners, from content-focused support, extra help, vacation, summer work. All of those things have been really helpful to our families and students.
That's great. Thank you, Carmen. Tanya, I want to come back to you and ask, what's your sense of the level of preparedness that we'll see in this year's AP test takers? And what are your thoughts about this year? I am so sorry. Sorry. Speaking of technological challenges, what's your sense of the level of preparedness for this year's AP exams among your students at the O'Brien, and if you have a sense more generally?
No problem. There are varying levels of preparedness. I mean, if we're going to be honest, some students are flourishing during remote learning. Some students who had actually not been so engaged are more engaged now, and then other students who they are struggling. It has pushed us to be more creative in the ways that we deliver lessons and how we engage students. So, like I said before, some teachers have flipped their classrooms. When we started school. Well, when the teachers came back, we engaged in 10 days of professional development as well. And, the teachers became more acclimated to using some of the online platforms such as Nearpod, Perusal, Delta Math, Peer Deck, et cetera. And so we know that, as we move forward, we're going to have to do things differently. We know that there are going to be gaps. That's why we're going to have to capitalize on the good that did come out of this time period, such as using the virtual space. I know we're going to have to come up with some more Saturday sessions, or even some evening sessions, so that we can build programming around our student schedules as opposed to the schedules of the adults. But I do believe that we'll be able to engage more educators because they'll be able to do this work from the comfort of their home. And I do believe that we have invested educators who all understand that, across the world, some of our students have these gaps, and they want to close it. That's why we're all here today. I'm trying to find the ways to do so. Another thing is that, we have to make sure that we have parents be a part of the conversation. Some of our students are going to be first generation college students. I'm sure it's the same in Worcester. So, coming into a school and entering this conversation about AP can be intimidating. But if we begin to break down those walls and have AP awareness for families in their home language when possible, or just making sure that it is always possible, it can be a game changer for our students of color.
Sorry.
I'll stop there. No, I'll
No,
stop
I want
there.
to, you said something, Tanya, that I want to follow up on. And then, Carmen, I'm going to ask you a new question. But you mentioned these weren't your exact words, but kind of what I would call the silver linings of our current experience. So the virtual approaches.
Absolutely.
And I'm wondering what you've done this year that you think might carry over or be valuable for students and or teachers going forward when the pandemic is over.
Okay, so this is coming. It has not happened yet, and it was going to be a recommendation that I actually made, but I'll say it now. I believe that we have to have more master classes. So coming up shortly, one of our teachers here, he's not an AP teacher, but the concept is I think it can be a game changer. He's going to be teaching a lesson, and students from across Boston Public Schools are going to be invited into via Zoom. So if we begin to have more master classes, let's just in our AP programming, I think that, we can have teachers who are new to it. They can see teachers in action. Our students can begin to have conversations with students from other school districts. And if we can expand it even further, having conversations with students in other countries, provided it's on the right time zone, right? But they can begin to engage in this practice and talk about the skills that they're learning, how they're going to attack a certain problem, and just allowing, we learn by doing. So giving students this opportunity to learn in this way, and in terms of having master classes, could really be beneficial to students everywhere and educators.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
Carmen, I'm going to ask you a different question. And unfortunately, this is going to need to be the last question I ask the two of you, because then my colleague Sally Guadagno is going to join us to ask questions from the audience. So Carmen, you have deep experience of recruiting English learners into AP and engaging their families in that process. So as you look at strategies, as you look at our current pandemic conditions, what strategies do you recommend to other schools and districts in terms of recruiting and supporting English language learners in AP, both right now in our current environment and going forward? And I'm going to ask you I know you have so much knowledge, and we have to be a little bit short just so we have time for audience questions too.
Okay, so I'll try to only speak on a few highlights then. So one thing that has always worked, it worked pre-COVID and it will work during this time, is working with families, is taking into account the culture, the language of our families, and ensuring that they have the information. It might work in increasing the number of Latino students and English learners into AP. That has been one of my #1 strategies that has always worked. Every single family that have attended my AP presentation or presentation around being college and career ready and including AP in that presentation, every single family followed up with their guidance counselor to ensure that their student had an AP course the following year. So that is a strategy that we cannot undermine even during the pandemic world. And now I think the technology really makes it accessible for us to have interpreters during a Zoom meeting and all that. So I will really encourage thinking about your community resources and community partners. I partner with churches and I ran workshops out of churches to talk about AP and talk about how to be college and career ready. And families attended those workshops. And I have a lot of testimonies and a lot of success out of that, a community partnership and outreach. The other thing that has worked around improving or increasing the numbers of English learners is really looking at our course offering and looking at that low-hanging fruit that you may have in your program. For us was that AP Spanish course that I felt was underutilized. And we made some changes. We remove all barriers of any prerequisite. Any student can take any course in our school. But we felt that a lot of Latino students waited until the 12th grade to take AP courses. And we flipped that around, and we were intentional in trying to get Latino students take that course in the 10th grade. And I could tell you from my experience, every single Latino student that took that course in 10th grade took another AP course 11th and 12th grade, and it was not a language-based AP course, meaning that they took an AP Calc, an AP English, AP Government. So sometimes, you know, we have already structures that could promote AP amongst our English learners. AP Spanish was one of the easiest things that we could have done to improve, and it really built not only the skills but the confidence. We felt a lot of our English learners lacked the confidence and felt, oh, that's not for me, and that really changed their mindset, and really looking for opportunities among our superstar teachers and really try to engage in a conversation and having them open their doors to more English learners, taking into account that these teachers may need additional support and training. So that's something that we also worked. We worked with our superstars teachers that really had good turnout from participation to outcomes in the exam, and really challenged them to really open their doors. You know, the doors were always opened, but really to embrace this idea of having a more diverse class in their AP course, and that we will ensure that we will support them throughout the process, whether connecting them with the English learners department with the coach, or pairing them with an ESL teacher for co-teaching, providing an extra period during the day for those English learners to work, not so much on the content, but more on the language that the kids will need to access that context. So those are a few highlights.
That's
I
great.
could speak more, but
I know, and I would love, as I said to Trevor before, the two of you, it's the same is true with both of you. I'd love to have another hour to talk further. Right now, though, I'm going to introduce my friend and colleague, Sally Guadagno. For those of you who may not know, Sally is our Managing Director of Advanced Academics at Mass Insight. And Sally, I think you may have some questions from the audience.
Sure. I'd like to welcome everyone, our participants and our distinguished panelists. And I've worked with Trevor through our College Board partnership, and I've seen firsthand the work of Carmen and Tanya as our district partners. They are two folks who would refuse to take no for an answer. They embraced our program and welcomed all students into their classes and wouldn't let them drop, and then followed up with providing the support the students needed. I have to say both Worcester and Boston, I had great attendance at virtual study sessions this year by both students and teachers. The questions, I have a couple of questions that have come up. A few have to do with Trevor's mention of the project-based learning approach. One asked, how will the general public get access to the George Lucas results? And will curriculum writers for the other subjects, other than the two mentioned, expand this approach into their areas? For example, this questioner asks about physics. I don't know if Trevor's still with us, if he knows the answer to that.
I'm happy to, would you like me to respond in the comments itself so that you can be taking other questions in the meantime, more open questions? Because I can respond to both of these right in the text box if that helps.
I have only a couple of questions, Trevor, so let us all hear.
So yes, Physics 1 is high in demand. We've surveyed all AP teachers to ask them for their interest. The computer science A teachers are the most interested. Physics 1 is very high, statistics is very high, human geography is very high, world history is high. So those will probably be, we'll start developing the same curricular approach that the Lucas Foundation already developed for US government and environmental science for a bunch of other AP subjects as well, prioritizing those ones I just mentioned. And how to get access to the material. It's all, so the curricular resources are free and open source right now. And there will be an event on February 22nd where the Lucas Foundation announces their results, and then we will post links on our website to all the information. So apcentral.collegeboard.org people will be able to get there from that.
Great. And the other question, I think maybe all three of you might want to approach, in your opinion, what are the other entry-level AP courses we should be offering to get students to take further classes? Carmen mentioned, of course, AP Spanish for schools that have a percentage of language learners. What are some other courses in your view are good entry courses? Having taught AP Lang and Comp, I will say my favorite course is AP Language and Composition, and it is certainly accessible to all students. One that we like to call in Mass Insight the Gateway course. Builds confidence and appeals to a wide range of students. But other than my own personal opinion, I'll turn it over to the professionals.
I think that I won't say professional, I'll take it, but I'm going to say AP Computer Science Principles. And this is something that we're actually going to start in the upcoming school year. We want to give our students, and because we're a 7 through 12 school, so I want to capitalize on us being a 7 through 12 school and not waiting until students get to high school to introduce AP. So what we're going to do is we're going to pilot the computer science course in 8th grade, so that when the students do get to 9th grade, those students who are already here, they will enroll in AP Computer Science Principles as a 9th grade student. And I think that we have some evidence to support it. We launched a math pathway program here a couple of years back. And right now, our grade 11 students, we have like 2 cohorts of students who are enrolled in AP Computer Science, AP Calculus AB, because we had our 8th graders take Algebra 1 and Geometry at the same time to accelerate their math scope and sequence. So that's something that we're going to be doing in the upcoming school year, and we'll be talking later to find out how successful we have been with that.
Great, and we have support for computer science principles, Tanya. Anyone else?
I could add one more, or actually a couple more suggestions. AP Human Geography is the course that we had offered to 9th graders before, and we've been really successful with that. And we use that course also to open it up to English learners. Actually, we really went outside the box with this one. And we actually created a section. We wanted to pilot this idea of having a section just where we would have English learners, so they would have a safe place where they could speak, communicate, and engage with each other. And it actually became the favorite course for that AP teacher, who we actually identified as one of our superstar teachers. It was a great course that built not only content, but the language. I interview all of our students at the end of their AP experience to see what were some of the highlights and some of the areas that they struggle in. One of our students, one of our English learners, said that was the course where she felt she learned English the most. It was so much language base, but the supports were there. So she not only learned the content, but she learned English. And what this teacher realized was these students want to learn. They want to be challenged. They want to be like everyone else. They're going to learn English, whether they're in a college level course, honors level course, or an AP course. Why not give them the opportunity to be at the course they want to be? And if we give the supports to both the students and the teachers, I want to make sure I stress that, both will be successful in the experience. The other course is not an AP, but I think it fits into AP, is that those heritage language courses like Spanish for Native Speakers 1 and 2, some districts, we actually last year started implementing those in the middle school. So using those to be feeders into, again, the AP Spanish course, again, allowing English learners, Latino students in this case, to really feel challenged and feel they're in an environment where they feel acknowledge that their language is seen as an asset and used to really propel them to excel and achieve academically.
Yeah, I would, Trevor mentioned the AP seminar course earlier. I would also recommend that one. We've seen great success in AP seminar courses, even in grade 10 in some of our partner schools. So that's one certainly worthy of consideration. I don't see any other questions at the moment. So Sue, if you'd like to wrap us up, we're just
Sure.
in time.
So I'm going to ask our speakers maybe to wrap us up. I'm going to say I want to thank each of you very, very much for joining us and for sharing your phenomenal insights and expertise. And I'm going to ask, it has to be literally 1 or 2 sentences, but are there any closing comments you would like to make? Carmen, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, thank you for this opportunity. As you could probably tell, I'm an advocate for equity, and I truly believe that this is the right for every student, and it's not up to the student to ensure they have access to all these opportunities. It's up to us to ensure that they have access to rigorous instruction and curriculum, and that we don't just do it for a federal compliance to make sure we're following the law, but we do it because it's the right thing to do. It's part of our values. It's part of what we know and what we believe. So thank you for this opportunity.
That's great. Thank you, Carmen. Tanya.
I would just say that as educators, we cannot give up on students, nor can we put a cap on their potential. But we can never tell them what they cannot do when it comes to where they can go. And I'll say that we have to be the change, and we have to be the dreamers for them when they cannot dream, because we have way more experience than they do in this world. And it's our job to guide them. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Trevor.
I have nothing to add, but sort of thanks and praise and esteem for what educators are carrying this year. In a normal year, educators carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, let alone this year. All these students' hopes and dreams and struggles and frustrations and anxieties have been compounded, and what you're carrying is immense. And I find that heroic, and we want to be a great partner to you. So please don't stint on the feedback. We need your guidance as to how we can be most helpful. But thank you for what you're doing.
And I want to echo Trevor's thanks. Again, thank you to all of you who participated, both in the audience and as panelists. And I want to echo what Trevor said about the amazing challenges that people like Carmen and Tanya and the millions of other educators have been taking on this year on behalf of students. And as a former superintendent of schools in particular, I am deeply appreciative of your efforts on behalf of all of your students. So thank you all. Take good care. Bye-bye.